Greetings, children of the screen, your friendly neighborhood nerd scum here once again. I am joined by...
Bree.
And Logan.
And welcome to another edition of What You Mean You Ain't Seen a Ween.
Hello.
That's right, they managed to do it without laughing because it sounds like a dick. Yes, the title of these videos does sound like a euphemism for cock. Today we're going to be taking a look at Nightbreed. What you mean you ain't seen Nightbreed? Nightbreed, originally released in 1990, rated R, coming in at 102 minutes. It is a horror film that is written and directed by Clive Barker. But today we are taking a look at the director's cut, which is an extra 18 minutes long, coming in at 120 minutes and is not rated. Starring Craig Schaefer, Ann Bobby, David Cronenberg, and Doug Bradley.
From the imagination of Clive Barker comes Nightbreed.
Alright guys, what'd you think? Just in general, briefly. Overall, Nightbreed.
I thought it was fun. I love practical effects, so like so much was used in this movie. Not one character looks the same as any other.
Yeah,
They're all
absolutely.
different.
They're all unique.
And you said you classified it as horror. I wouldn't call it that.
Well, it's got monsters in it.
It does. Yeah. It has monsters in it, but I don't know. I wouldn't call it horror. It didn't scare me.
You definitely get a couple different mixed feelings there, because it feels like a slasher. Then it kind of at the beginning felt like a very horror.
Yeah,
like the beginning scene is pretty horrible.
Yeah, almost as if it's a movie.
Oh,
like
that's
where
what they call
there's
those?
a lot of different elements of storytelling going on that all converge on a central theme and thesis that also brings characters through an arc that changes them. You know, like a fucking story. Unlike, unfortunately, a lot of horror movies today.
Yes.
But this is also Clive Barker, who's a fantastic writer and painter and all-around just badass pimp motherfucker. So yeah, it's a pretty solid movie, guys.
Nightbreed.
Alright, guys. So what was your favorite thing out of Nightbreed?
Probably, like I said in the beginning, the practical effects.
Can you name, like, one or two specific ones?
Oh gosh. The guy, I guess the head guy with the hair and his, right here.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I forget his name. And the porcupine chick was pretty cool, too.
The main one's played by Doug Bradley, who also plays Pinhead in the majority of, the classical Hellraiser run.
Yeah.
And Clive Barker had worked with him, obviously, previously on that movie.
Yeah.
So he brought him in for that role. And I know I've seen the lady in the makeup in other things, but I can't place her at the moment.
Yeah.
Because obviously she looks nothing like she would normally look.
Right, yeah.
But
They're
yeah,
all stunning.
those are two, what's nice about the Doug Bradley one is, it looks so normal with just enough things that are off to make it look weird.
Unsettling, yeah.
And he's still human enough that you can, relate to him. So, he's an easy entry point, and it makes sense that he would be, the person who, in most cases, would probably moderate between them and the natural world, as it were. And then...
kind of leads.
Yes. And then the other one is kind of she is kind of the embodiment of the kind of ideal behind the message of, these people being ghastly and disgusting, but yet also beautiful and complex she's so many different things in one. It's just a beautiful visual metaphor for everything the movie's trying to say. Sir, how about you?
All the things y'all said go without saying easily. I guess really two. David Cronenberg,
Fuck yeah.
He really helps push the multi feelings that you get from this movie, because at first every scene with him you're like, this is slasher shit. This is slasher shit, you know. But then of course the monsters, which I guess kind of goes into the war at the end.
Yes,
very cool. The rednecks, that whole thing with the guns, that part was so ridiculous.
Oh god,
but, you totally know, because they are kind of playing the redneck-ish kind of people, so the gun thing where they're just creaming over these guns, just fucking hilarious.
Yeah. The David Cronenberg thing also is just when you first are introduced to that element of it, you're like, oh, okay, so this is going to be a slasher movie then. Okay, cool. We got the slasher movie thing going on.
Yeah.
But even as, his character unfolds, they get way more into, they don't dive into it, but you get way more into, the psychology on his side of it, where, you see his apartment, and it's just, pictures of murder, crime scenes and stuff all over the place, and, his whole belief that he's, purging the earth of filth by like killing breeders and their kids and all this kind of stuff, which then like leads him into this sense of justification at like striking at the people of Midian, and like
even though they're like a whole other thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But in his eyes now.
In his eyes, he's like, oh, well, this is why I've always been different. This is why I've always, like, as a person who has also studied psychology, he's always looking for, like, the root of why he is as he is. And he's like, it was destiny. That's what it was. And then it builds into, like, probably, we never get to see his fantasy from his side of things, but all we really get is this idea that, like, discovering that these things were out there and they were real is a justification of all the horrible things he's ever done and every horrible thing he's been.
Because they all could have been one of them.
Yeah. Well, that, and also it's been in service leading him to this greater good. You know, it's like, I'm a monster, but I'm a monster who was put here to kill these monsters. And that makes me justified.
And that's terrifying.
Yeah, and he really conveys that in his fucking performance.
That mask, man.
That mask is terrifying. Yeah. As a kid, that was actually the thing that scared me the most out of the whole movie, especially because, again, you see that mask in the beginning, and eventually the first time you actually see him pull the mask off, and he's just the most unassuming looking guy.
Some white dude.
And of course I had no idea it was David fucking Cronenberg, the director of The Fly and Videodrome and Naked Lunch and all that shit. I was just like, he's just a normal guy.
Yeah.
That's what he looks like. It's just a dude.
Joe down the street.
And somehow, in this movie of like monsters and shit, that was more terrifying to me than any of the monsters, which is exactly what the movie wants.
Yeah.
It wants you to see the monsters as
the
people.
Humans.
The humans are the monsters in this movie, and David Cronenberg's character beautifully illustrates that both in the writing and in his performance.
I'm not one of them. I'm here to destroy them. See, I've cleaned up a lot of breeders. Families like cesspools. Filth making filth making filth. And I did it over and over and over again. But it was all leading me here. I was born to destroy Boone and breed together. You're crazy. No, I'm deaf. Plain and simple. Say it! Then don't say it.
As for my favorite thing in it, it's one of those things where, like, the movie does an amazing job of providing you with very little exposition and information, but implying a much grander history and mythology to these people and to their race and to their, like, again, their history. It's like we see a little bit of it through, like, images and, like, through flashbacks and stuff like that, but they do a really good job of maintaining that balance of giving you just enough that it's still mysterious and like kind of mystical and outside the realm of your knowledge. You never 100% identify with them as the same as you because they're still encased in this mystery. But they give you enough that you can imagine and you can kind of project, and like you get the hints that like these creatures, there's multiple different races, it's not just one, and that like at one point they were spread out across the earth and eventually they all had to like gather together to survive and like live underground, both physically and metaphorically, you know. And then even like through that we see that like they are a culture of not just monsters but like mysticism, so then that gives it kind of like another level of kind of mystery and almost like a religious context, but it's like
without anchoring it in
without
anything.
Anchoring it, so all it is
that I liked a lot.
So there's definitely something spiritual there, and it's alien to us, and we don't understand it. So it's easy at first to project all your fears onto that, like people do with religions and cultures and things that they don't understand. And then furthermore, like through that we get the prophecies, which then foreshadow and establish that like this is a cycle that will continue to happen. Like they will rise up to a certain extent and then they will be stomped down and eventually they will flourish again. And then we even see like the prophecy, and it's like it's almost one of those things where like in the Matrix where like how many times has the prophecy come true? You know? Like Boone is their new prophesized Messiah, you know, who's going to lead them to salvation, but how many times has that Messiah come forward and how many times have they rebuilt and all that kind of stuff. And of course, like, again, the thing that reinforces the idea of that cycle is the idea that Boone is both the Messiah and the destroyer. Like, he comes into a culture and uproots it but maintains the core value system and then changes it and is supposed to grow it up and make it flourish again.
Yeah.
And of course, like on
That's
the
really
way,
special.
yes, and on the way to that, we get what is a surprisingly emotionally like heartfelt and tense and like action-packed war between monsters and, as you said, good old shit-kicking boys, you know? Shit-kicking boys.
Damn truck boys.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
You know, and that sequence is, again, it's one of those where, like, I don't know if they ever were able to, salvage all the footage from it and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And it does have some elements in it where it's a little bit silly because, like, in fairness, this movie is amazing, but there are places where you can see the budgetary limitations in the movie. But yeah, overall, it's just like a badass, awesome monsters versus people fight, and the monsters are the good guys. Like, how can you not fucking love that?
Right.
And it's all just, like, interwoven into this tapestry of, like, intricate, like, ideas and concepts that they just give us enough of that we can play with it in our own heads. Again, Clive Barker, being a novelist, like, knows how to do that shit. Yeah. Better than most screenwriters, anyway.
I feel more sympathy with the hybrids, and I think probably as a creator I'm also a hybrid, in the sense that the kind of fiction I write is very difficult to categorize, even though attempts have been made to call it horror or to call it science fiction or to call it fabulist fiction. I write a fiction of the imagination, which is Clive Barker's fiction, and it is a hybrid. It contains all kinds of disparate influences, William Blake and Goya and Bosch at the high art end, if you like, and I guess comic books, Crazy Cat, Bugs Bunny, Ray Harryhausen's movies, Fantasia, at the other end. I shouldn't say ends, because that sort of implies some hierarchy of excellence. I don't really mean that. I think that Goya probably would have enjoyed Bugs Bunny. It was very visual, and Goya was deaf. You know, the whole thing about categorization is about limitation and specialization. And I'm an inclusionist rather than an exclusionist. I want to be able to take in as many influences, as eclectic as possible, and somehow or other mold them into an experience. In the case of Weave World, taking lessons from Melville and J.M. Barrie and Lewis Carroll and William Blake, and saying, now, let me see what I can do. These are the things which are going on in my head. Now let me see if I can make something which is Clive Barker.
Okay, guys.
God damn it.
All right. So, out of this movie, this beautiful, poetic work of genius of a young man just coming into his prime artistically, what do you fucking hate?
It took me a minute to think of anything that I didn't like, but if I had to pick something, it really kind of hacked me off that, I didn't actually learn his name, but the guy with the dog, when he died.
Oh, yeah, Nipples.
Yeah!
That's not his name, but yeah.
But that's what we're calling.
Well, they ripped the thing out of his.
And he's got big tattoos around his nipples. Like, I honestly can't remember the character's name at this moment either, but yeah.
I audibly spoke up and was like, I'm irate. I need to stop for a minute because I'm mad.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, like...
Hurt my feelings.
They've done, like, again, that is
they
just...
fucking killed everybody.
Yeah,
like, I don't know what
they killed a lot of people, but that movie is at an interesting... It's an interesting point just in terms of, like, if they have not managed to endear these monsters to you enough that you care.
Yeah.
Like, if at that scene, if you still think of them as monsters who are a threat, then the rest of the movie's not going to work for you.
They're,
you know?
They're kind of like testing.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that's the turning point moment where, like, at that point you can't go back to like being like, I don't know. Like, you really have to side with one side or the other.
They were dabbling, like when Laurie and the other guy had this thing, you're like, oh, they are fucking monsters.
Oh yeah.
Like, fuck this guy.
There goes the neighborhood. They're not pretty. They're not neighborly. Y'all come back now, you hear? They're not even human. But this time, they're the good guys. From the imagination of Clive Barker comes Nightbreed.
Which kind of brings me into my least favorite, which is kind of weird. Laurie?
Yeah.
Laurie, like, at the beginning, loved her. She's fucking cute, alright?
Yeah.
And then, like, I dig it. She's, like, committed, even though he's kind of like a zombie vampire thing.
Yeah.
Ish.
Uh-huh.
And, like, went through hell for it and stuff. But towards the end, you're like, bitch. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that is, like, fair and legitimate.
I actually really liked her.
And, like, I will at least say this. Like, he writes her like he writes most his characters. Like, she's a little bit messed up. Like, she is irrational, not because she's a woman, but because, like, people are irrational beings. And, beyond that, like, she still has agency in the story.
Yes.
Like, there's never a point in the story where even though she makes choices that we might consider to be fucking stupid, like, a dude who's, like, just walked away from you twice very easily, and then, like, deciding that you're gonna,
love him.
You love him, so you're gonna stab yourself, so either he can let you die or make you immortal, so you can live together forever until he decides to leave you again.
You get your Romeo and Juliet bullshit, or you live.
We may not agree with that decision, but she has agency. She makes choices. They do affect the story, and like,
the way she handles those choices and consequences are very well done. Like, she's pretty calm and steady through the whole thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, they throw a lot of shit at this poor girl.
Yeah, and
she does it pretty
like
well.
3 times. I mean,
she never has a complete and total nervous breakdown, which, like,
our main protagonist did at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, you know,
I actually really liked Lori.
So yeah, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, it could be worse because I mean, like,
True.
Could be Twilight.
Right.
Fucking.
You're like, whoa, when you put it like that.
Everything's true. God's an astronaut. Oz is over the rainbow. And Midian's where the monsters live. And you came to die.
Oh, my least favorite thing. Well, my least favorite thing was the thing that sucked.
Oh, right. I know
Yeah,
that thing.
no, actually, I got nothing, really. Honestly, my least favorite thing is, I kind of mentioned it briefly, but it's just that, like, they really... Some of the more, like, extravagant Nightbreed in the movie, they didn't really have the kind of budget that you would want to do it. Or things like, you know, they were on kind of a smaller sound stage, so you never really got the scale and scope of the cemetery. They have some beautiful matte paintings, and, like, kudos to the artists on that. They look great, and, like, it's beautiful. It sells the feeling, but we never really get a sense of the scale of it. And similarly, there are some of the creatures who are, like, more deformed and misshapen, where, like, the majority of them look great. Yeah. But there's a few of them where it's just like, that really looks like a rubber suit. That really looks like a rubber suit. And it's like, I get that, like, it's in the distance a little, and, like, you didn't plan on lighting it, but this is on Blu-ray now, and they should have adjusted for that. Yeah. Most of the rendering, like, the Blu-ray render on the movie looks great. They managed to hide most of the seams and, like, not overexpose it the way so many Blu-rays do. But they just... Originally making the movie, they didn't have all the money that you could want to do things as elaborate or as extravagant as you can do in, say, a novel or a comic book, you know?
Yeah, right.
So again, like, effects work is top notch. It's, again, like, one of my favorite effects movies in terms of practical effects. Like, it's right up there with, like, From Beyond and, like, some of those other movies that we've watched. But yeah, they just didn't really have the budget to do the kind of crazy stuff that, you know, Clive really wanted to do.
Nightbreed.
Right on, guys. So, obviously, we all enjoyed the movie. Would you recommend it to people this Halloween season?
Oh, yeah, so fun. So fun. Like, perfect for, like, a Halloween party, and...
Yeah.
Perfect for that aesthetic.
I mean, I feel like you kind of gotta pay attention. But,
well, yeah.
It's that movie that works. Like, if it's just a crazy movie on in the background where, like, it looks cool enough and there's crazy shit happening enough that it can
like, you
work.
could cut all the audio out and people just see
like, yeah, it's still fucking crazy and cool to look at. Yeah, so you could do that, but then if you dive into it, there's obviously a lot more going on.
Yeah, which I would recommend it for that. Like, it's a movie.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. It is a proper film that, like, mixes all kinds of different, like, there are totally different genres that are perfectly balanced tonally in this. Like, it creates, at least this cut of it, creates a, like, full, thorough, like, emotional experience that you go through with these characters in the way that any good story does. Yeah. So, yeah, on those grounds, like, yeah, not only do I recommend it this Halloween season, but I kind of recommend it anytime. Like, if you're... It's not even really that scary. It's more, like, again, it's really just, like, a big metaphor for, like, outsiders and people who are on the outside. And it does a really good job of like having you start off as like the outsider looking in, and then at the end of it you're on the inside with them waiting on the new Messiah to come, like in the barn looking up to the stars and stuff like that.
Yep.
Like the metaphor works beautifully, and like especially if you like cool effects and like crazy stuff, like fucking watch this movie.
Yeah.
It's got David Cronenberg in it.
Very good movie.
God bless fucking Canada. Watch the movie.
Nightbreed.
Right on, children of the screen. Thank you for joining us once again for another edition of What You Mean You Ain't Seen, Nightbreed.
Good night, y'all.
A ween. Because it sounds like cock. Really? Is it really that funny, guys?
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm not asking you. I'm asking them. Let us know down in the comments below. Is it really that funny? What you mean you ain't seen a ween? Does it really sound that much like cock? But anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and share it with your friends. Also, if you're not subscribed, please hit that little bell so you can get updates on all the dope content we'll have coming out here in the future. Furthermore, if you'd like to follow me on Instagram or Twitter, I'll have the links for that down in the description below. Thank you once again, children of the screen. Hope you all have a good one. Nerd Scum, out.
Good night.
Bye.